told you about a conversation that has engulfed the nation. It's about the comprehensive sexual education. And we also know that there is a guideline, a policy guideline that was developed by the National Population Council. But look, for all the things that everybody is saying, every stakeholder is talking, the parents are talking, the media, we also have those from the charismatic and the Christian, the Protestant groups also making their comments, and the critics of LGBTQ rights, etc. We have to put all the issues into perspective, and we have decided to bring on board those who own the policy guidelines itself, the National Population Council, and we'll be having the executive director giving us a great conversation on the subject. Dr. Letitia Adelaide-Appiah is already here. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yeah, and I know that you have various things to say about all the brouhaha this has generated. But look, let's put some perspective on this discussion, and we begin with this.
Ghana have a guideline that I've shared with you that we see it is imperative, if this nation should develop, that sexuality education should be part of the curricula that we would launch this year in September.
Education Minister Matthew Opoku-Prempeh speaking at the launch of the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Program in January this year. He justified the introduction of the CSC into the curriculum, that it was important to enhancing the knowledge of Ghanaian students about sexuality.
Ghana has long recognized sexual and reproductive health education as a conduit for addressing issues affecting the youth in this area. Originally provided by elders and other traditional leaders in community, aspects of reproductive health education were introduced in the school system with the advent of formal education.
But parents, religious organizations, and civil society groups began to raise concerns after the document was leaked to the media.
Okay. At primary 5, who is 10 years, is being taught about relationships, friendship, dating, and courtship. And that's in here.
Primary 5?
Yes, that's 10 years,
10 years
at primary 5.
Okay.
They're teaching them about friendship, dating, and courtship.
And this got many talking. The first to have raised a red flag was the fierce critic of the LGBT movement, lawyer For Amonin, who said some texts and modules in the curriculum resonated with LGBT activism.
You see, it is a strategy. They have a plan. It is always not open for you to see. It is very subliminal, and they come in all sorts of ways. Now, what is their strategy in terms of Africa? They have noticed that our culture and our religion, we're very strong. So what do we do to counter this? Let's go through education. And education is strong because if you win the mind, then you can win what? The heart. They work on the instincts, the feelings of children, make them feel that, oh, it is nice to be erotic, to touch your organs, to masturbate, to do all sorts of the freedom, which in latter years, they will encourage you to accept.
And some parents have also been condemning the attempts by the government to incorporate this into the curriculum, as they feel they should be the ones teaching their children about the sensitive topics of sex and sexuality.
It's not our culture. For our culture is different. We cannot take white man to compare with the blacks, because we have our real culture. Before you, as a woman, you know a man there, you have to mature before you know. So me there, I know I give them.
Executive Secretary of the National Council for Curriculum Assessment, Dr. Prince Ama, says the introduction of these into the curriculum is not new.
The concepts in the CSC are something that are incorporated in aspects of our curriculum at different levels and different subjects. They are taught interdisciplinary form, self-identity and knowing about our community, the values and attitudes, personal hygiene, and roles and responsibility as a child. We have something like that in our school system currently.
Despite the strong defense mounted by the NACA, the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council has vowed to kick against the implementation of what it says is a demonic program. Reverend Dr. Paul Frimpong Manson is the president.
We, the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, we are totally opposed to it. None of our teachers will teach that, we will walk our children out, and any government who will promote it, it will be a tool for him to work out. So many things we are fighting against sickness, diseases, and whatever. We should teach people the better way to control these things, not how to be gays and lesbians and do all kind of social vices, which is contrary to scriptures. We will kick against it.
So, is there an attempt to subtly introduce LGBT ideas into Ghana's education system? Or the concerns being raised amount to taking things too far? Parents are worried, teachers are worried, religious groups are worried, and the Ghanaian, caring about their values of chastity, is even more worried.
And more religious sects are worried. So we decided to have a great conversation with an Islamic scholar and spokesperson for the Chief Imam, Sheikh Shaibu Arimeyao, who is saying the leadership of the Muslim community have not so far been consulted.
The whole concept is new and very unfamiliar to our environment, and it's also in conflict with our traditions, even in terms of our religious diversity. There are certain virtues we hold in common, and matters of morality are things that almost all the religions agree on. So our traditions and values related to matters of the sex is something that we uphold dearly, and we think that is part and parcel and integral to our lives. So for such new concept to be introduced without broad consultation, for us to, one, understand the concept very well, two, to know where does it begin from? If we want to engage in sex education, where does it begin and where does it end? This framework has not been made clear, so we've just heard that this has been introduced, and I think that that is where I find the fault, and something needs to be done about it. I'm very convinced that no such consultation, broad consultation, has ever been done. I'm sure many will agree with me. We need to register our complete disapproval of it, and let the authority understand that such things, particularly in Islamic schools, may not be approved and may not be accepted in our schools.
And we know that this is also mainstream into a policy guideline. So how did this all begin? Indeed, issues of sexual reproductive health have always been part of our curricula. We've always had some great education on the subject. Now, who developed the guideline as well? We had the National Population Council. So we decided to invite them into the studio. The executive director is here, Dr. Letitia Adledapia, already introduced to you, and you're the custodian. So we have to heap all the troubles we're getting on you.
Well,
but
not exactly.
Okay. So, but we do know that the Population Council developed the guideline, and
with our stakeholders.
Yeah, with your stakeholders.
Yes.
And the guideline is supposed to tease out what is supposed to be mainstream into education.
Yes.
Okay. So how different is what is in this guideline, and then also what is supposed to be in school?
Well, thank you so much. But before I start, let me pay tribute to Professor Sai. You know, Professor Sai, the board chair, may his soul rest in peace. He'll be laid to rest on Thursday, and I hope that we give him the dignifying exit, because he's done so well for our country. Yes, now to the guidelines for comprehensive sexuality education. We've been doing it, as you said, and in my time too in school, we've been having comprehensive sexuality education from home, school, and then into adulthood. But then this guidelines is just supposed to streamline it. And it looks at the developmental stages of the child as it grows from baby. Indeed, comprehensive sexuality education, the first part starts from home. Parents are supposed to be the foundations of comprehensive sexuality education if they are being very responsible. So they teach the children how to be, when you are born, you are a boy, you are a girl. And that is where sexuality education even starts from. The way we dress, the way we are treated starts from home. And then to the school. And so if you look at the first part of the comprehensive sexuality education manual, it starts with the value clarification. The values that we are taught in Sunday schools, the values that we are taught in our Islamic schools, that is where the foundation is. And then it builds on as it goes. So what we decided was to take all these documents and put them together in a structured form, so we don't miss any part and we follow the children in the developmental stages as they go. And so that is how the comprehensive sexuality education is structured, and that is how it came about, that we have it all together, especially for out of school, because we had out of school education also on sexuality that was not very structured, that was haphazard. And this document, we're talking about the in-school, but we also have out of school, very structured up to the age 24 for out of school.
Now, through that conversation, then we're going to have a tease out of what is supposed to be for the curriculum.
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen what is being done by NACA? It's the institution, yes, or the body that has been constituted by the government, Ministry of Education, Ghana Education Service, to put together what the structure should be.
Yes. So we did the policy, we handed over to Ministry of Education, and then the NACA, as you're saying, is populating it. And they're looking for resources from different angles. So they're getting resources from different angles, some from Kenya. You know, Kenya has a comprehensive sexuality education that is really, really, for me, very detailed and very structured. So they're looking for resources from different organizations, from different documents to populate it. The catchword here is culturally appropriate, culturally very sensitive, because the issues somewhere are not the issues here. And so we look at our context and make sure that what we are populating it will help the children grow up to be healthy adults. Indeed, what the other organizations are talking about and what we are talking about is the same thing. It's the welfare of the children that we're looking at. So anything that will derail them, nobody is for. And that is what we all seek to do. But probably the communication is not as good as it should be.
So ideally, what's supposed is to be the synchronization between what is supposed to be in school and out of school, in terms of what sort of content goes out?
Well, the content is supposed to be synchronized.
The same?
Yes, the same till, you know, for the in-school, it's up to 18 years. Because we assume that if you are in school 18 years, then you'll be going to the tertiary education. But then if you're out of school, you will still probably be out of school. And so there are some skills that you would need. Like entrepreneurial skills is part of comprehensive sexuality education. Because if you are empowered and you can work and have your own money, then you would not be in an abusive relationship. So it's all part of the syllabus that we build on. There's a foundation and then you build on gradually. For me, I think that we have probably not done justice to the document and circulated widely, because the religious leaders have a role to play. Value clarification is in the Bible, and that is where it runs through the comprehensive sexuality education, because your values actually determine your choices. The values you have. And
you had the minister there, September, when this October 1. So it means that the component of in-school has started.
Yes, NACA is working on the component of in-school.
Fantastic. Now, if what is being taught in school syncs with what is out of school, then many related organizations are doing the out of school. Which will be some of the organizations?
Well, the issue is that even before this comprehensive sexuality education, there were many organizations that were engaging our children out of school. And the issue is we didn't know what they were engaging them with. So is it better to be in ignorance or to know exactly what and to guide? You know. So now we have a structure. Even if you want to take our children out of school through comprehensive sexuality education, this is the manual we have for the country. And these are the TOTs that you need to do so that we give them this information, because this is information that we as a country have decided that our children need to know. We have so many organizations working in the country. We have a PPAG working with us. We have Maristobes. We have IPAS. We have so many other organizations working in the country.
Are their manuals different, or they all been teased out from the main guideline?
Well, now we have a national guidelines, and so everything is supposed to be teased out from the main guidelines. Yeah.
Now, what has caused the controversy? The content, I believe, mainly spread through this. And this one is the PPAG one. And it's got the ECOWAS emblem and all that. It's not different from what's in the national guideline, and also what will be in school, right?
No, some of the materials, what NACA is doing now, which I must confess that I don't know exactly where they've got into now, but I know they have so many documents they are teasing things from, and this is one of them. The issue is, we may not like everything inside, but it doesn't mean that we should throw the baby away with the bathwater. There are certain things that we can go through them and pick. I told you about the Kenyan one. Yes, it is good, but it is not everything that is applicable to us. So we need to look at, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have to look at the various documents, look at our situation. We're talking about LGBT. I'm talking about teenage pregnancy. I hope we'll have a group as powerful as the LGBT group against teenage pregnancy and see how to take the issues. Because for me, that's a bigger issue than LGBT. I mean, we're not talking about LGBT, and I would really urge all of us to stop circulating the videos, because the people we are trying to protect will also be watching it. In our quest to discredit the comprehensive sexuality education, we should be mindful of the children and, as much as possible, stop circulating those videos, because children have curious minds. What are these people talking about? And they would see, and what we don't want them to rather do, we could even
Is that not the same reason why parents are worried? That if there are issues related to concerns about children's rights and what their gender, sexuality, and sex should be, and they need to know and need to be aware, and those videos are raising concerns in other parts or other jurisdictions of the world about how CSE is implemented in those respective countries, and we know the thing is a universal language that is being spoken. The way it's implemented in my country, I should be worried about.
That is very true. Okay. You should be worried about.
Okay. If you take the PPAG guideline, for example, it has on page 14, some people who want to change their sex may use hormones and or undergo surgery to alter their sexual organs permanently. And we're talking transgender.
Yes.
Okay. And you are not assuming that the conversation out there is saying that don't go and educate people on teenage pregnancy, or there shouldn't be an overwhelming support. Is that not, that's not what the Population Council is saying, are you?
The issue is that the manual and what Population Council is saying is that use your data in-house and let it fit the guidelines. Look at the data that you have. We have a lot of data from Statistical Service that we do not use. So the data that we have, where does it fit in abusing sexuality, for instance? In our culture, when you go to the villages, because I'm a girl, I'm supposed to go and fetch water. And the boy is supposed to go to school in some communities. Because I'm a girl, I'm not supposed to go to school because I'm menstruating. Those are the issues we have around sexuality. That is also human rights. So you have to look at what pertains in your country. Like I said, the UN can talk about having balanced diet. The whole world, everybody should have a balanced diet. Balanced diet in Ghana is banku and fufu. Balanced diet in Japan is something else. In the UK is something else. But it is balanced diet. So human rights and sexuality issues, how does it play off in our country? That is what we need to look at and address. Because probably outside, there is no problem about water in schools. There's no problem about sanitary pads when you are menstruating. So that is not a human rights issue. But for us, being a girl and going through this physiology and being punished as a society.
Part. So,
yes, there are so many parts that we can look at.
And it's good that you mentioned the related issues about the statistics.
Yes.
From the Population Council.
Yes.
Do you get the inclination that there are sections of our population who, because of their choice for their gender or sexuality, are discriminated against? And you feel that the guidelines then should make sure their voices are heard?
Of course, if you talk about child marriage, for instance, they don't marry boys that are not given out in child marriage.
What about people who want to change their sex?
Well, people who want to change their sex, it's not an issue that we have in the country. You know,
it's not.
It is not an issue we have in the country.
You've not found it in the statistics?
For public health, if you're talking about public health, you talk about the generality of the people. The generality of the people are hungry. The generality of the people, I mean, children are hungry, children on the streets. Indeed, if we are so much worried about sex change, which is so expensive when they don't have 5 cedis to go and buy food, then we should give them food and take them off the streets.
Yeah, people who are homosexuals and would want...
Yes.
Because now it's been declared internationally, that is a scientific issue.
Well, that is why you don't create the conditions for such people to take advantage of your children. And such people will take advantage of vulnerable children. vulnerable children are normally those they will take advantage of unwillingly because of satisfying a need. And so we as parents, we as a group, we as religious authorities need to make sure that our children are nurtured and safe. And then it will be difficult for people to tell them otherwise. And that is where parents are very important.
That is why the guideline says that the education itself, CSE, is supposed to be starting from 4. I say it here.
Yes, okay.
4 to 18 years. And so the NACA is telling us that the content of what will be delivered is age specific.
Yes.
Okay. At which age should a child know about penis, vagina, about who is a homosexual or how you feel, and to get to that point of determining whether you have a certain inclination toward one gender or the other?
You see, like I said initially, everything is based on...
the door. Please refer to
Yeah, everything is based on values. You get it? For me, the values are the foundation on which everything is built. Like the building has a foundation. And the foundation, it's important. So the value clarification will help you ask questions and answer them. The first part, you have values in society, the societal norms, what we believe in, and how we interact. You know? So, and as I'm saying, as you grow and you start developing, at 9, 10 years, you're going to menstruate, and so you're going to be, I mean, your sexual organs are going to kick into activity, and so you need to know that these are the things that are happening in you. Before you start menstruating, you're only using your nose, your mouth, and things, and your eyes. Those were engaged. Now your sexual organs are going to be engaged, and this is what to expect, and this is what, I mean, this can happen in your body, and this is how you have to manage them, you know. So around that time, yes, you have to begin to tell the children. The issue is that when I was growing up, the only media we had was GBC. And at 1 o'clock, it is they give the news, and that's it. And the whole day, you hear nothing. There's no internet, there's no news, there's nothing. But now, apart from GBC, you have Joy, you have so many media.
And the internet.
You have the internet too. And so it is important. So now what parents and nations are doing is competing for attention of their children. And we have to actively put the children on the path that we want them to go. Just saying cancelling CSE is not, it's creating a vacuum that will surely be filled, unless of course we're not bothered about how it is being filled. If we're talking about abstinence, which of course is important, and I talk about abstinence a lot to the children, because the issue is, if you're a teenager, you can prevent pregnancy, but you'll be setting yourself up for cervical cancer in future, which you do not need. And so you have to let the children know abstinence is important, but then these are other options that you need to look at to make informed choices.
So what has been put here by the PPAG? We know they are an appendage of the
this is
IPP.
This PPAG manual, it is not Ghana manual. So you cannot, yes, this is PPAG.
But they took it from the national guideline? Or not, or whatever is here is not here?
No, whatever is there is not there.
Okay.
No, these are the national guidelines, and this is one of the resources that Ghana, the NACA, is using to populate it. But it's not everything in it that we're taking, because it has to fit our culture. It has to fit what we believe in. It has to leave the objective. The objective is to make us healthy, educated, peaceful society.
Are you not worried that as a population council, you have an out-of-school manual that doesn't sync with the so-called values that you mentioned?
No, it does sync with the values that I mentioned.
It says that.
This is not an out-of-school manual. The out-of-school manual is also being developed by the community division of our institutions. This is not an out-of-school manual. Just as the in-school is being developed, the out-of-school also is being developed by the NYA, the National Youth Authority, and then some other institutions.
So the related organizations, Maristopes, and the other sexual reproductive health related agencies that tend to use manuals, those manuals are independent of the national policy guideline?
Yes, till now, yes. But now that is what informed the national guidelines, so that we have national guidelines for everybody in country. This is not for Ghana. This is not a Ghanaian-owned manual. We're developing our manual.
So this one is for which one? You are aware of this?
Yes.
This one is for which region? This one?
It's not for any region. This one is for the PPAG, like you said.
I understand.
Yeah.
And I'm asking you.
Yeah.
What the other agencies like PPAG, Mary Stokes you mentioned, and the other ones that we have, what they are using to sensitize people in our communities, shouldn't it fit into the national guideline?
Of course it should fit into the national guideline.
So does it fit?
That's what I'm saying, that we have not come out with our out-of-school manual yet. Just like we have not started the in-school comprehensive sexuality education yet. We have developed, we've taken the step to have the guidelines. And now the various implementing institutions are populating it, just like NACA is doing for in-school.
Okay. So what is being taught for the current academic year in school? Just like the minister said, for the current academic year, has not started yet.
No.
Has not been completed.
No, because NACA is still working on it, as you know. NACA is still working on it because we want to get it right, you know. And you know that there was a dissemination from Gatmaka Institute that showed, before you do all this, you need research to show how the knowledge of the teachers, because you have to know the base and then you can build on. And so the TOTs will go on before we roll out. And it's either going to be standalone or fitting into it, and that is all. GS.
So if children, let's say even at 10, because elsewhere 10 years they decide to change their agenda or maybe have a certain lineage towards it, if they are in Ghana, such population are in Ghana, how do we make sure we improve on their rights?
Our problem is that children at 10 years in our country are rather getting pregnant and having babies. That is the challenge we have in the country. You know, I will keep going back. We have to identify the challenges we have. These people have those challenges. Our schools don't have toilets. Our schools don't have water. Our children menstruate and they have to fall out of school. 10-year-olds are not being catered for by their parents, and so they are having sex and having babies. Those are the issues that we are having. And so those are the issues that we address. The fact that people are going to space and we cannot eat does not mean that we should follow them to space. We have to get the basics right first. And those are the issues that we have as a country that the CSC is trying to address. Because the human resource is the most important. And if we just let them, 14% teenage pregnancy rate in Ghana, 1.6% teenage pregnancy rate in developed countries. In China, it's less than 0.1% teenage pregnancy rate. So those are our challenges that we need to look at. We want our children to be in school and stay in school, to come out as productive citizens. Those are the current issues that we have, and that is what the CSC seeks to address.
You at the MP's National Population Council, as you observe the ongoing conversation, where do you think that maybe we got it wrong? Or where the misconception is coming from?
Well, like anything that you don't know, you have supposed to be afraid of, because it's self-preservation, and I totally agree with everything. Just like happened in Ryan White. You know, Ryan White had HIV, and parents will not allow the guy to be in school with their children. Why? Because they didn't know that HIV is not transmitted by sitting with each other. So that is it. So it is very, very appropriate and very right. So what we need to do, as the Islamic scholar said, who is my friend, said, and others have said, we need to engage. We need to let people know what is in it, because we cannot even do it alone. The first part, the 6 to 11, that is fundamental, actually is supposed to be with the traditional rulers. It's supposed to be with the religious authorities, because that's the values we hold as a society, and they are the custodians of the values that we hold. And the Christian values, the Islamic values, that is where it starts from, and then we build on. It's just like when my children were in school. I used to do the 1+1 homework, because that is where I could help them. And then when they started doing higher things, I could not help them. And so the religious authorities would help us in it if we let them know. For me, all this is coming out, and it's very good. It's telling us that probably there's a communication gap that needs to be met.
Would you fault the Ministry of Education or the Ghana Education Service perhaps for not consulting enough, or perhaps not sharing some line of communication on the subject? Because the minister went ahead, did a launch, and subsequently gave the announcement that the current academic year, which started last month, would start this in-school engagement.
I think that as a country, we focus too much on deliverables, like we have seen the document produced. But then after that, we need to have a dissemination strategy that should span probably even a year, you know, so that everybody knows, because when you are proactive, it's better than being reactive. And so proactivity, we need to have a dissemination plan. We gave the document to the minister. It wasn't even on air. We just gave the document to the minister, and then we came out with it. And after the launch, we should have had a dissemination plan to make sure, do the stakeholder mapping, and make sure that we go to the stakeholders. Because when we go to the stakeholders, it is easier for them to understand than the rebuttals. And so the communication strategy, I think, is something that it's not just for this, for all our programs, because we have policies that nobody knows about.
I've read your CV, is online, comprehensive CV. On a personal basis, at what age do you think that a child needs to know about what a vagina is, clitoris, and who a transgender is, who a lesbian is, and who a gay is?
Well, I don't know who a transgender is and lesbian is, but who a girl is and a boy is, and the clitoris and the penis. From age 9, 10, I think it's fine, because that is when you start menstruating, and that is when all those things would kick in. The boys would have erections at night.
So at 4 years, as you have in your guideline, what is going to start?
The guidelines at 4 years, like I said, is the foundation, is the values. It's the values we believe in as a society. The values of respecting your personal space and my personal space. The values of telling you that you are a boy, I'm a girl, we're not different, we complement each other. So you're not better than me, and I'm not inferior to you. And so
that's what you think should be impacted from 4 years?
That is what will be impacted from 4 years.
It's being or will be?
I mean, it's being actually, and then we'll continue to impact that.
Because the thing is, it's being taught in school.
But the issue is that I think that parents should also be gatekeepers. The parents have 4-year-olds in school, 6-year-olds in school. Responsible parenting is about the girl has come from school. What were you taught? Because that is when you can also monitor. And if teachers who are probably want to do something else, if teachers know that parents are involved in their children, they get more interested in their children too.
Okay. And the conversation is not only between you and I. So we also want to let in our audience, our viewers. So we're opening the phone line, 0302211691 or 2. We want you to call us. Already we have Ibrahim Tebiri from Brekum. And Ibrahim, good morning. Good morning, Ibrahim.
Roland, hello.
Yeah, good morning, Ibrahim. You want to comment? You've been following the conversation?
Yeah, I've been following the conversation.
This one, this particular one, right?
I want to ask the doctor a question.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
My question is, he has always been saying about values, but he has not mentioned any of the values that are found in the guidelines. And the second point is that the transgender, knowing yourself, and maybe you want to change sex, you decide which sex that you want to be. When he was talking about that, he made mention that people even don't have food to eat, and changing sex is very expensive. If that is the case, that people don't have food, and now therefore they will not get money to change their sex, then why do you even bring it in the guidelines? I don't know whether it is in the guidelines. If it is in the guidelines, why do they bring it there? Because some of us who are not even aware that I have the option to change my sex at all. If you bring it in the guidelines, am I now not going to be informed that, oh, this is the way. And therefore, I will try and manage and find a way somewhere to get money to go and change sex, especially those who are the homosexual. Really, they have money. So the moment they become aware that, oh, this is the way out, they will manage. The two of them can put their heads together, manage, and do whatever they want. So they should be very mindful of our culture.
Okay.
Ibrahim,
thank you. I think your point has been made. Now let's go to Hassam. Hassam Akliga, please note the first one. Hassam Akliga Yakubu, you're calling us from Zabela. Hassam.
Yeah, Roland.
Yeah, Hassan. You've been following the conversation, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been following the conversation.
Please go ahead.
Please, this whole education reforms, I think the stakeholders have been consulted into issues.
Your line is bad. He says that the stakeholders should have been consulted in the education.
In the regions. Okay.
In the, okay.
Yeah, can I? Yes, thank you so much. The first one.
Please go ahead.
Yes, you talked about the values, so I have them here. Develop skills such as critical thinking, communication and negotiation, self-development and decision-making, sense of self, confidence, assertiveness, ability to take responsibility, ability to ask questions and seek help, and empathy. Nurture positive attitudes and values, including open-mindedness, respect for self and others, positive self-worth, esteem, emotional intelligence, comfort, non-judgmental attitude, sense of responsibility, rights and positive attitudes towards their sexual and reproductive health. So these are some of the values that it talks about. And then the second question was change of sex. Nobody in the manual, there's nothing like change of sex in the manual. It's the interpretation people are giving to it that is, that is where the change of sex is. The issue is about sexual rights. And sexual rights in our context can also be interpreted to mean that a man cannot just decide that I want to sleep with this 14-year-old and pick that girl from school. Because that is also a right of that girl. It's because she's a girl. That is why the 40-year-old can decide that I want her out of school to marry. It's not because he's a boy. So that is because of her sex. She's being discriminated against because of her sex. So you have to look at your context and see what pertains and address it for equality. Because the men and women are supposed to be equal, just complementing each other for national development and for self-development.
I have feelings towards the opposite sex, and that is my right. How does the guideline address that?
Yes, you have feeling towards the opposite sex, that is your right. The guidelines also talks about the right of that person. It talks about the right of that person and that person to have a right to his or her.
So that person also has the same feeling and so has the same rights. So, it festers the environment, right?
Festers the environment how?
For that right to be manifested.
Well, but what about the man and woman?
No, well, because what about the man and man or woman too?
Well, in our context, it's between a man and a woman. We have not come out as a country to support gay. I think we have to make that very clear. In our context, that's why he's talking about culturally sensitive and appropriate for our context. In our context, a family is a man and a woman and a child. That is the context of our family.
All right. It's an ongoing conversation.
Yes.
So your discussion brings a finality to it. You think it should?
Well, I think the discussion should go on. I don't think it should bring a finality because we need to know the details. Parents need to know exactly what is going to be taught to their children, because parents are the primary responsibilities of their children.
Well, thank you very much. And it's an ongoing conversation. Dr. Letitia Adelaide, PR Executive Director, the National Population Council. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And also thank you for your views as well. Ibrahim Hassan, even though Hassan, you had a bit of challenge with your line, but we have to move on. We'll talk comprehensively about many other related issues. You're still watching the AM Show.